do believe... Yep, I believe we are live again. Alright, welcome back. That was a combination of errors of OBS and probably school Wi-Fi. Go Tops, right? Alright, let's get back up to speed on what's going on. Tornadoes still possible. It's just passing through Sand Springs and just to the northwest of Tulsa. Fairly strong but broad rotation signature at this moment. Not a whole lot is occurring outside of that. Excuse me for just a moment. Alright, there we go. That should be working. Alright, now we're back. Oh, hang on. Might have something potentially wanting to be on the ground. Could just be break in correlation coefficient, which it does look like. It is just a little false TDS there, nothing to worry about. Still doesn't look like anything is on the ground or has been on the ground at all with this for quite some time now. And it looks like the storm itself hasn't really produced much in the way of hail either in quite some time. And we do have another cell that has gone tornado warned just south of the main complex. This is our tail end Charlie we were talking about a while ago. Doesn't look like anything's been reported quite yet, however. It is a fairly discrete supercell. And it does have a fair rotation couplet. It lacks a little bit, but it's certainly not too bad. Let's see how it's evolved. It was a little stronger not too long ago. If it ends up turning further east, it'll have a little more qualifications to it. Just go check on our cell out towards Tulsa. I'm pretty sure this one is in the process of dying at this point. I think there's so much convection surrounding it that a lot of the energy that was going to go to it whenever it was a little more discrete is getting sucked up by all this other convection, which is partially the reason why we haven't seen as many severe storms tonight as well. For example, we do have a couple of cells up here along the front across Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. However, we don't have anything in the way of true severe storms. So far, the system has pretty significantly underperformed. No. With this cell in Tulsa, I do think it is going to weaken and is probably going to fall apart, at least for the next probably half hour or so. Yes, it does have rotation, but the structure behind the rotation is starting to bleed through a little bit, one could say. Something I am noticing here is we, of course, have our main area of rotation here Might be a secondary couplet forming south. Let's see if there's, yeah, it does look like we might have a new hook echo trying to form. A new mesocyclone. I don't know how strong it'll be able to be, but if it does actually end up forming into a substantial hook echo with good enough inflow, it might be possible we see some additional development, potentially some more storms down the way towards Claremore and further up Interstate 44, but all in due time we'll be able to tell. Take a look back down here at the cell that is heading towards Okmulgee. Okmulgee. Still not the strongest looking signature on radar, to be honest. And the velocity is still fairly lacking. We were looking at, still fairly weak velocity signature. And I'm sure nothing is on the ground. Yeah, I think that's just going to be noise. Yeah, nothing on the ground with that. Take a look at this cell right behind the Tulsa one just for a moment. Just make sure. Yeah, I don't think there's anything on it. We'll check that little area there real quick. Maybe a slight area rotation right off of this nose, well outside of any populated areas, but still worth watching for potential development down the road. I doubt it will, given how much convection there is out ahead of all this. Still somehow we have some fairly strong rotation signatures. I mean, of course, the southern one here, right on the nose of the new mesocyclone, but of course this existing area here, very, very broad area rotation, to be sure. Personally, I think that cell is going to die here in the next few minutes. Which, if it does, it'll be kind of interesting because we don't have all that much convection going on outside of all of this. We've got our system in Oklahoma. We have a few cells starting to pop up around Manhattan, but they're not doing all that much in the way of being severe. And we have a couple of cells that are severe in Nebraska, mostly confined to some hail or maybe some damaging wind with them. They don't really have the potential to be tornadic by any means at this point. And of course, we've got a few cells off in Iowa. So fairly quiet night at the moment, really. Again, we had some storms out in Michigan earlier. Those have since fallen apart. We now just have a scattered squall line moving across the area. Maybe some isolated hail, maybe some gusty winds with it, but nothing in the way of tornadoes at this point. Alright, we'll take another look real quick at this cell. I will say it is fairly impressive to see this sort of line that is formed. Everything is kind of spiraling around this main rotation area. It's a bit of a unique structure. Regardless, we still have a very broad area of some strong circulation just over top the Post Oak Lodge and Retreat, moving off towards Turley, Sperry, and beyond that, Collinsville. Seems like most things have fallen apart, at least for the time being. It is still very wild to see how broad of a rotation signature this is. I'm sure this isn't even like a tornadic problem anymore. If it is, it's very broad. It's almost 7 miles wide for that main rotation area. Kind of interesting. It's kind of stalled out there. Or it seems like it's stalled out. It has definitely slowed down quite a bit. So many little low pressure systems seemingly. Here's a little bit of interesting structure down towards Sepulpa once again. Maybe a little bit of a rotation signature here, but I don't think it's much of anything. Take a look down south at our other tornado-warned storm. And it does not look like it's doing much of anything either. Overall, a much more quiet night than what was previously anticipated. Very interesting indeed. So I think with that said, for now at least, we might end up leaving the stream off here, but I want to look at a couple forecast models real quick just to get an idea of what they're thinking over the next couple of hours. We'll go over to the HRRR. We'll see it has stuff moving off to the northeast into Missouri, forming a squall line there, maybe a couple of embedded supercells in that line. But then across Kansas, activity is fairly quiet. I mean, we may have one or two weaker supercells cook off, but I think things are going to be fairly quiet out there. This might be a rather dramatic representation of what could actually happen. So this might turn into a little bit of a bust of an event. Not entirely, but we'll have to wait and see. It may be that stuff takes a lot longer and cooks off even more after nightfall, towards 10 or 11 o'clock or so. Which, if that's the case, I'll be watching, but I think for now at least, we're kind of in a fairly quiet period. I'm not sure what this Tulsa storm is doing. And other than that, we only have one truly tornadic storm to worry about at the moment. And even then, it is not doing all that much in the way of development. Still fairly weak. Yep, I want to say that this cell has kind of gone more of an outflow dominant position, or just lost its rotation in general, or its well-defined rotation. We still have this giant mess here, but nothing is going to be coming of that for at least the next half hour, I'm guessing. Ooh. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, well, apparently there's an observed tornado on the ground. I'm not sure how. Well, looky there. Something did touch down. That had to have happened in the past, past couple frames. Well, it looks like we do have a tornado on the ground then. And that has significantly ramped up in this last frame. I'll be darned. We'll go ahead and go to Storm Runner Media, get a on-the-ground view with what is going on. Very noticeable structure there when it's illuminated by lightning. Might take a second. But there it looks like a tornado just went through the subdivisions around Turley, which is just north of Tulsa. And it's about to cross over the Cherokee Expressway. Alright. Such a broad rotation couplet. Very interesting. National Weather Service has tagged on and extended that tornado warning for Collinsville and Oolaga heading towards Bushy Head at some point. Looks like the storm finally turned east enough to really get itself in gear. All right. Let's time this thing out. It looks like it's also starting to pick up a little more speed. Moving roughly 30 miles an hour still. Based on that, and we're thinking this general direction. Collinsville, you got about 13 minutes until it's in your general area. Bushy Head, about 50 minutes, but I'm sure this is going to be a little further north unless it recycles south. All right. Still not able to find much on the ground yet. Again, everything is so dark, it's kind of hard to tell if anything is actually on the ground without using radar, which we can determine now that there is actually something on the ground. It looks like it is weakening, though, which is a good thing, but it is about to cross the highway right ahead of everyone. All these chasers down here. It looked like a power flash on the camera there. It's kind of hard to tell, though. While that's ongoing, go ahead and take a look down here at the cell outside of, or still heading towards Okmulgee. Doesn't look like anything is on the ground at the moment. Still kind of a broken cell structure. Not too worried about that at the moment. Just want to make sure we're not missing something down there. And as far as this goes, it does look like the rotation signature is a little weaker. No, it's still holding fairly strong. Never mind. It is moving off towards a lot of these subdivisions, however, this general area. There's going to be a lot more potential for some damage if this thing continues to remain on the ground. Although it is possible that it has lifted by this time. Just one moment. It's a fairly, at the moment it is a fairly weak signature. Or at least debris ball, I should say. So he's probably up here. Yeah, alright. Well, if you can see on Chaser Cam, again, Storm Runner Media, go ahead and check them out on YouTube. Might have some debris coming up here from the tornado as it crossed over. Let's see. Law enforcement is sitting there, or maybe it was a chaser. Not a whole lot going on. There's no obvious damage that we can at least see with the Chaser Cam. So I'm going to go ahead and flip that off for the time being. It does look like that tornado has dissipated, which is a good thing. Again, we'll zoom out, just get an idea of what's going on elsewhere. And we've got a couple of hailers up in Iowa, a couple of cells in Nebraska as well, but nothing is really going all that tornadic. Everything is much more spaced out and less well defined than was anticipated. Check out the cell out towards Joplin, just make sure we're not having any rotation. Yep, it looks clear. Back off, see what Tulsa's doing. And the reflectivity outside Tulsa's it's a little interesting. Okay. Did the velocity separate? No, it's back here. Never mind. This is kind of a very subtle hook. It's not even really a hook. It's just you've got inflow notch and outflow there. So this is where your tornado would be and has been. And really kind of a subtle marker of anything going on. I'm going to check velocity. Still a fairly impressive velocity signature, but I don't know. The structure of the storm overall is very interesting. Still has potential, though. So that marks 2 tornadoes that this cell has produced tonight so far. just shortened that warning for Turley and all the subdivisions around there. So still heading off towards Collinsville at this time. Looks like it's going to pass just east of the town, though. Just watch this cell out towards Sand Springs real quick. Just want to make sure we don't have a sneaker back there as far as rotation goes, and it does look fairly clear, so keep an eye on it, though. And we'll look back south again at this cell. It's kind of getting into just a slight radar hole. Still has a nice velocity signature on it. However, I don't believe there's anything on the ground. Well, maybe. We have a little bit of a C, or a correlation coefficient drop right there, but it looks like it's more likely than not just noise from the radar scan. So probably not anything. There's not really a well-defined hook either. Maybe this area here. Kind of a subtle hook, if anything. Let's check back in on Collinsville. Collinsville, you've got, I want to say roughly 10 minutes until this thing is at your front doorstep. That's not what I wanted to click. Less than 10 minutes even then. It's going to be likely passing just south of you. Still going. It does look a little bit weaker. And it's definitely broader than it was. Yeah, just a tad bit weaker. Still strong, still ongoing though. This chronically rotating supercell. We'll see, it does look a lot messier than it has in the past. Does not look like anything is on the ground at this point. So the tornado that just went through Turley a little bit ago is likely occluded. Actually, has occluded. And is now pushing off to the south and east of Collinsville, and it will be passing north of Claremore. Alright, take a look out again. It looks like we had some fairly significant hailfall from these storms in southern Nebraska not too long ago. Especially that northernmost one. Fairly good reflectivity signature here. Little town of Milligan. Nothing tornadics happening out there though. We did, however, finally get a couple of these cells out towards Manhattan to turn more east. So here's where I'd start watching just in case something did decide to spin up. And looky there. We have potentially a little bit of radar couplet. Might be seeing just the beginning of some rotation on the southern end of that cell. It's weak, but it has potential, so we'll monitor it. Make sure nothing else happens out that way. We got a couple of cells, these severe warned cells, heading off towards Omaha now as well. All right. Cell down towards Okmulgee, still looking fairly weak. Let's check on this Collinsville one, because we got a couple interesting potential inflow notches here and here. No rotation there. Really a broad rotation area along there. Not too much to worry about at the moment. And doesn't look like any debris is being lifted aloft at this time. We'll take a look down here. No, just noise. Okay. I'm going to take a look out towards Joplin real quick. Make sure the cell isn't doing anything funny, and it does not look like it is. Alright. Okay. Nope. Check velocity again. We'll see if we get an update here in a couple of seconds. There we go. Alright, we've got a little more concentrated right there. Just a weak little nudge. Nothing that is picking up any debris, at least, on the ground. Yeah, really all is these two supercells ongoing. Alright. It seems like we've had some convection really start kicking off in southeastern Kansas over the past hour or so. Nothing severe, just kind of messy storms. Nothing looks at all promising on radar for tornadic development up north. Our only storms so far to do much of anything have been down here outside of Tulsa. It's a little interesting. Alright, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for now at least. Unless this latest scan, well, hey, hang on. We got a little bit of a recycling actually on this cell. Everything's starting to tighten up just a little bit more. Maybe we'll watch it for a couple more scans. We still have fairly good structure on it. Nice little hook echo there, flanking line. It's got potential to do something. We'll give it a few more minutes. It's still moving parallel to I-44. Just one of our traditional I-44 rippers is what I call them.
Velocity is still pretty broad. I don't know that this is the greatest signature at the moment. Might have to let it wrap around a little bit more, get a little tighter of a velocity couplet, but it's still rotating. Um, almost looks like we have a little bit of a detachment here. Still saying observed on that tag, but we don't have any sort of debris on radar. Does look like we might have a little bit of hail up towards Ulaga. But other than that, the storm's not doing too much of anything. Just sitting there and rotating. Alright. Go ahead and take a look further north at these hailers briefly. I've got a pretty nice reflectivity signature on this storm out towards Fairbury. About to pass by Beatrice, Nebraska. Still riding that frontal boundary up towards Omaha. And outside of that, not really a whole lot of anything going on. It's just those cells, cell out towards Joplin, and then the Oklahoma ones. Alright, here we have a tornado report from outside Turley, just marking the TDS. Okay. So as far as I can tell, nobody reported visually seeing it. We haven't gotten many reports in the way of damage quite yet, so hopefully not a whole lot occurred, but based on the TDS that was on radar for a little bit, it looks like some debris was picked up. Alright. Rotation signature is starting to wrap around quite a bit again, getting a little stronger. Just starting to head off towards the south side of Ulaga. And we might have a TDS here. Let me just verify that real quick. It's possible. It's right at the center of everything. Yeah, it looks like we might have a tornado touchdown just east of Collinsville. Third tornado in the supercell's lifespan with a potential touchdown. And for those of you who are wondering what I'm looking at specifically, it's going to be this little dot right there. It's a little dip in the correlation coefficient, which again, if you don't know, correlation coefficient measures the size of raindrops, hailstones, debris that is being lifted up or dropped in the atmosphere. So instead of telling how intense something is, it tells how big something is. That's a good indicator of large hail, especially, and also debris. It tells you where a tornado is on radar. And yep, it looks like there is indeed one on the ground. It's a very notable TDS there. Let's check that out. That's just some noise. Okay. Hey, yeah, definitely looks a lot stronger in this last update. So it looks like we have actually kind of a nice looking supercell, to be honest. Very notable hook echo all the way down along here. Classic supercell shape. A bit of an oblong shape, but it works. The tornado is radar confirmed based on the National Weather Service, so it doesn't look like anybody's physically seen it, at least yet.
You can see that is still a very nicely wrapped around a signature. The nice thing about this tornado in particular is there's not a whole lot in the area. It does look like it's heading off towards the small little hamlet of Elba. However, it doesn't look all that strong, at least at this point. It might actually just barely miss Elba. A couple of these subdivisions out here might get it. South side of Ulaga. Velocity is still good. We'll check on correlation coefficient. Yep. Pretty nice little TDS there. Not massive or anything, but it is definitely an indicator something's going on. We'll check out towards Okmulgate real quick, just make sure nothing's playing around down there, and it does not look like much of anything is going on. At least a decent radar signature on that rotation, but I don't believe there's anything on the ground. Nope. All right. Alright, while that waits to update, I'm going to have a look out towards Missouri side of things. I'm seeing there's a tornado possible tag on one of these cells out here. Is it that one or is it another one? I just had to refresh that. Trying out a couple new things with this stream, so occasionally they like to break down, not work. Alright, this velocity signature has grown a lot weaker in the past couple in this last scan, I should say. And the TDS looks like it has started to fall off a little bit. We'll see what happens. Looks like it's gonna, if it is still on the ground, it's heading for these few roads and houses just on the southeast side of the small town of Ulaga. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot out here for it to hit, which is a very good thing. Very good thing indeed. How's it going? You know, I'm doing all right. Just hanging out. Figured there'd be some storms that'd be more active around the area, but you know, it's been kind of a slow night, to be honest. Just watching Tulsa and the areas down there put a couple of weaker tornadoes on the ground, and now we're just waiting to see how those develop. And it looks like that one cell outside of Upala, Ulapa, or however you pronounce it, Ulaga, yeah. Looks like that tornado might have dissipated, or is at least very weak at this point. Just a weak one. Very good, though. I mean, this cell just doesn't have the energy at this point, I think, to support it. I'll go ahead and look at the meso-analysis briefly. I just want to check and see what all is going on with the instability at the very least. Instability has fallen off quite a bit in some spots, but I mean, it's not negligible. I think part of the problem now is there is a much stronger capping inversion, which is essentially an area of warm air aloft that prevents rising parcels of air from rising up into the atmosphere and forming clouds. If you got that capping inversion, especially towards the surface, it's going to prevent things from bubbling up. And whenever we have cells or big storm events like this, whenever that cap develops, it can be a killer of the event. And that's a little bit of what we saw today, I believe, especially across Kansas. And it kind of looks like the Ulapa storm has dissipated in some capacity. I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell. It might still be on the ground. This couple of dots here, it's possible, but not 100% sure. It might just be residual debris in the air that's being dropped. It is a little hard to tell at this point. Let's see, these are not the most impressive storm structures I've seen, to be honest. I don't think we're going to see much of anything from these cells at this point. They're rotating. They've got some potential, but they have fallen off quite a bit, at least. Yeah, and we look at the latest velocity signatures outside of Elba and Ulaga. It does not look like we have a whole lot happening out there anymore. It looks like a lot of the storm has fallen apart, especially with the relative velocity. It looks like the whole system is the whole storm is kind of just petered out a bit. I mean, especially with these past couple of scans, it looks weaker and weaker and weaker. Yeah. I think it's finally dying in earnest, at least. It is a very oblong shape, I will say that, if nothing else. Alright, well, given that, and given it's so quiet right now, we'll take a look at what else is going on, and I might call it, at least for now, unless some massive storm develops, in which case I'll be back later. Yeah, I mean, I think that, let's see, 2-inch hail. Ooh, 2-inch hail off towards Lincoln. All right, that's a little interesting. Just a wee bit. Kind of a scattered signature there. You can kind of make it out on radar, though, these two hot spots. But nothing to worry about rotation-wise. Check down here towards Manhattan once more. There's a little bit on the back side of that, but I don't think it's going to be able to do it. Yeah. Kansas was absolutely a bust for this. Couple of hailers, but
nothing ever produced like it was supposed to.
Alright, let's take a look at this cell one more time, and I think I'm going to call it for a bit. Progressively weaker. I'll let it be. It is a long way before it gets anywhere, if it even does. Oh, well, how about this? This southern cell down here, I guess it produced something. I guess it produced a weak tornado a while ago. Let's see. Yeah, I guess it tightened up just enough in that general time frame. Since then, let's just see how it. Let's see how it's progressed real quick. It's had a pretty constant signature. It's never been the most impressive by any means, but it's still there. Never did see correlation coefficient drop, a debris ball show up. Doesn't look like anything is at least getting picked up on radar. One last check on this, and I think it's about to get just absolutely lopsided by this stuff coming in from the south. Yeah, it's pretty much done. Alright, I think with that, I'm going ahead and call it there for now. Just look at two things real quick. 50-mile half-inch hail, and then I want to check on this one real quick. Quarter-inch, 60-mile. Yeah, alright. I think I'm going to call it there for at least now. I'll let you know if I do end up going live later. But until the next time, I'm Weatherman Fife. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in who has. Sorry it wasn't more exciting of a night. I certainly thought it was going to be supercells popping left and right, especially across Kansas. But we just witnessed a classic bust event. So, if you want to see non-busts in the future, please hit the like button. I guess subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you all very much.